What movie was basically just an ad? I went to the toy store to buy the Power Glove with my Christmas money, and that lovely man working told me the Power Glove is garbage, kid, so we're not selling it to anyone. I think about that sometimes, and it makes me happy. I wish I had a person like that in my life as a child. I bought so many shitty licensed NES games while ignoring the classics like Castlevania and Mega Man. Obviously, the point of Lucas using this device in the movie was to show that his video game playing skills were so superior that even with the handicap of the Power Glove he was still able to achieve top scores in Rad Racer. While Coke is everywhere, even literally saves the aliens from death, it's McDonald's facts that are more interesting. Supposedly they're the ones who bankrolled a lot of film's production. It's one of the only films to legally use Ronald McDonald. They are very hardcore about how they let media use him, but they were basically the producers of the movie and forced the McDonald's scene. To McDonald's credit, that scene was such a jarring blast of nonsense, it ensured nobody would ever forget the movie. I tried explaining to my mom about the time she took me and my brother to go see Mac and Me. She didn't remember it at all, despite my efforts to explain what happened in the movie. Mom took us to see a lot of garbage movies in the 80s, it's all kind of a blur to her, so it's understandable her soul might have jumped ship and only remembered it as a weird dream. It was the one with the kid in the wheelchair, who just tumbles down a hill, off a cliff, and into a lake. Nope. The one where the kid in the wheelchair suddenly dies at the end for like no reason, because they edited out the police shooting him in the back. Nope. The one with the aliens who are saved and brought back to life by Coca-Cola soda. It has a dance scene at a McDonald's. Oh god damn it, that piece of crap was real? Love you, Mom. Thank you for taking me to every shitty movie ever, heart. My parents wouldn't let us watch E.T. because the hazmat intrusion scene was deemed too scary. So we got Mac and Me. We watched it repeatedly as kids. We rewatched it as adults and couldn't breathe, we were laughing so hard. When we told our mom she subjected us to one of the shittiest movies of all time, she looked surprised and said, I remember that movie being really good. Oh boy. Oh yeah, I've watched that episode when I wanted to introduce my girlfriend to the absolute madness of Mac and Me. It does cut out a good portion of the film for obvious reasons, but the juice of it is still there. I think they cut out the entire Sears scene, where they just kept tight angling Sears deals on ovens while chasing Mac. I think I like it because the aesthetic of the film just shoots me back to childhood. The minivan with fake wood paneling, the RC car, the clothing. That and Flight of the Navigator are my two comfort films from childhood. You want a double feature of nostalgia? Do Flight of the Navigator followed by The Explorers. Now you're talking my language. There's just something about 80s sci-fi with kids as the stars that hit me in the feels. I know it's not sci-fi, but adventures in babysitting is the nightcap. Feed it into my veins. Also, Navigator emo kinda holds up plot-wise. The acting. Well, at least it has Sarah Jessica Parker looking like an MTV VJ. I don't think Navigator is bad at all, really. The acting is pure 80s, and the science honestly isn't even that far off. Fun fact, as a kid, I counted the lightning flashes at the end as he flies back in time. There's one for each year traveled. Oh goddamn, that's a party fact. As a kid the science was lost on me, and then rewatching as I got older, it just made the movie even better. Compliance. Maybe, I don't remember that as much as I remember the Orion film's opening montage. That's forever burned into my brain. This whole mini thread got me thinking, and I found an interview with the lead actor kid, Jade Caligari, and his mom on Geraldo after the film was released, and he was talking about his spina bifida and how he joined a non-profit to teach abled kids about disabilities to drop the stigma. Honestly, a cool 8 minutes watch, because this was when Geraldo was a normal guy and not some bronzed raisin with no filter. I honestly just hit a bong right after I got off my laptop for work, and now I'm in a rabbit hole of old Geraldo interviews. The Force Awakens, even if you think it's bad for whatever, probably terrible, reason, is a well-paced, competently made movie. Comparing a movie that's pretty much perfectly made with a glorified McDonald's commercial from the 80s is pretty silly, my dude. Even if you're super mad about Star Wars. I use Rotten Tomatoes myself, but you have to remember what the percent actually means. A 93% on RT doesn't mean the movie is considered almost perfect or anything like that. It means that 93% of professional reviewers thought it wasn't bad. It's literally a 2-point scale, or thumbs up / down. A movie could have over 90% on RT, but have a 6/10 on IMDb, and it would still make sense. As a programmer, when they were cramming, and one asked the other, "Did you study the HTML and CSS stuff?" And the other responds, "HTML5 and CSS3, right?" I cringed. The scene was set up to make them seem super smart, so they threw CSS3 and HTML5 in there as jargon. The problem is, those two technologies are literally the simplest parts of web development, and the fact they were chosen for this just proves that scene's writer had no idea what they were talking about. Edit, my comment wasn't necessarily about the complexity of HTML and CSS, it was more about the fact that literally no one would specify HTML5 and CSS3. Today they're synonymous, and the reply to the question was ridiculous. It's like someone saying, I'm getting a new car, and someone replying, you mean one with 4 wheels, right? I didn't make that as clear as I should have. Edit number 2, because I love the conversation that's happening. Yes, the writer made a good choice using HTML and CSS, in order to make it relatable. But the payoff of the scene, the climax of the look at how competent we've become montage was just completely ruined for any relatively tech-savvy person watching that movie. If they had have changed that CSS3 line to yeah, just finished. Starting on the XHTML maintenance chapter now, the audience would be engaged, and I would be impressed. Just saying. Lucasfilm actually did the special effects for Spaceballs, free of charge, on condition that Mel Brooks never actually releases toys for the movie. That's why the movie made such an in-joke about it. George Lucas signed a deal with Fox. He agreed to forego payment for directing the original Star Wars in exchange for full rights to the merchandising. He made billions from the toys and product placements. There's a show on Netflix, The Toys That Made Us. In the Star Wars episode they talk about how the original toy deal was basically give us $10K a year and we won't ask questions. The deal both made the company, don't remember the name, and let them basically start the expanded universe to print money. When they were bought out by Hasbro, they let the deal lapse. A few years later they announced the prequels and a new toy deal. Watch it again. It holds up. The movie was largely credited with saving Disney's animation division, and was directed by the same guy who directed Back to the Future and Forrest Gump. And it has a hard-boiled Bob Hoskins, Christopher Lloyd, and a cast of animated characters that literally never had, nor ever will again, share screen time together. Reading about the development cycle of the movie is just unbelievable. I actually see him somewhat regularly, was before COVID at least, and he looks totally different in person. Like, he really does just look like an older version of his character and married an axe murderer but with streetwear shoes and nicer clothes. An actual honest-to-God nice person that is still making a living as a working actor. I think there's no shame in that even if it's commercials. I specifically remember the cheerleader asking to borrow the car, but calling it by proper branding name. Instead of just can I borrow the car, it was hey dad, can I borrow the Nissan whatever. I actually forgot what specific car they were whoring themselves out for, just remember it being a super jarring line. I was half expecting her to turn straight to camera and say something like I need to borrow that car specifically for its comfortable seats, turbocharged engine, and smooth handling. Is there anything more in the spirit of Transformers than developing an earnest experience from what was built out of a cynical cash grab? The franchise from 80s to present has always been a commercial, doesn't mean it hasn't brought millions of people real joy. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize this. Hasbro was presented the toys in Japan and came back to the US and said how do we market these? Oh I know, let's make a children's cartoon. The whole show was designed to sell toys. Not the other way around. The entire reason they killed off a load of characters on both sides in the original 80s movie was purely to bring in a new line of toys to sell. It has always 100% been about the toys. Also, every episode had as many scenes as possible with a bunch of toys Transformers standing around, so your favorite toy would get screen time. They also tried to have each toy character be the focus of the story for at least one episode. It's weird that the whole movie frames the sheer absurdity of Al Pacino shilling out for Dunkin' Donuts, but it still actually is a real ad for a real product that Dunkin's is really paying to advertise. It's like they had a celebrity endorsement commercial idea that was so stupid they felt the need to make an entire movie letting the audience know they knew it was stupid. Also, due to a binding endorsement contract that stipulates I mentioned Power Addy at each grace, I just want to say that Power Addy is delicious and it cools you off on a hot summer day, and we look forward to Power Addy's release of Mystic Mountain Blueberry. It was Pizza Hut in the international release. Edit, for those wondering why, it's because at the time of the movie's release, Taco Bell wasn't really outside of the US, I still don't think they are to this day but anyways, so they made another version for international audiences with Pizza Hut instead because that brand was in more places. So there are two versions with that part of the movie poorly re-edited and dubbed. It's obviously a Mexican themed restaurant they go to but everything is edited to say Pizza Hut. So there are two copies out there that people may have seen either or.